Welcome to Good Game, I'm Bajo.
And I'm Hex. This week on the show, we take a look at two very different glimpses of the future.
That's right, Hex. We hack into the near future of Watch Dogs and see if there is actually any canine observation involved.
You're going after that creep, aren't you?
Well...
You're doing it right now. I can't believe you.
Yeah, the call's breaking up. I can't hear you.
Plus, the team behind Bastion take us to a distant cyberpunk future in Transistor.
Once this is over, maybe there's still time to skip town. Think about it.
Also, Goose explores the ups and downs of ladders. And Hex, I believe you go on a little trip down memory lane with Road Rash.
I do. But before all that, can you name the game for this week?
Who's the little fella?
Punt.
Punt? What do you call him that for?
Hey, Red. We're not gonna get away with this, are we?
When you speak, I hear silence. Every word a defiance. I can hear, oh, I can hear.
Red, wait. Let's go.
Transistor is set in Cloudbank City, where we find ourselves in the shoes of Red. Clearly something has gone down, as she's standing over a dead body which has been impaled by a giant sword known as the Transistor.
Together again. Sort of.
Who exactly you are, who that man is, and why this sword is talking to you are all mysteries just waiting to be pieced together. It's a clever way to start a story, isn't it, to just drop you into all of this action?
Yeah, absolutely. Instantly I was asking questions and wanted to know what was going on. And it's quite cryptic too, it doesn't spell everything out for you.
When everything changes, nothing changes. That's the Camerata's creed.
Yes, and we'll try to avoid spoiling any specifics, except to say a rampaging robotic virus known as the Process has been unleashed into the world by a group called the Camerata. They're using this virus to try and hunt you and the Transistor down.
The good news is you have a deep and interesting combat system to fight them off. You're free to just bash away at enemies in real time, but at the press of a button you enter into a sort of turn-based strategy planning mode.
Then every movement and attack chews up a portion of your turn, and when you unleash your move, you carry out all your planned attacks in the blink of an eye.
The kicker is, once it's unleashed, you can't attack until your turn meter refills, and this leaves you vulnerable for a few seconds. But this does give you time to run around and collect all the dead bodies, and you need to do that, otherwise they'll come back to life, which is quite surprising the first time it happens. I loved this combat system, Hex.
Yeah, and you really need to balance both of those modes effectively in order to be successful, don't you? Sometimes you're better off trading strategy for a bit of brute force, but you get damage boosts for attacking enemies from behind, and you'll often need to just stop everything and use your brain to survive a fight.
I found the weapon and perks system a bit confusing to start off with. Basically, every weapon, known as functions, can also be applied as active buffs for other weapons, or as passive buffs on Red herself. I just think they could have explained all that a bit better.
Yeah, but once it does actually click for you, I think it's a really great system. It creates so many possible combinations to try out. At almost every opportunity, I was switching out all of my functions and putting them back in as new combos. Just constantly experimenting, trying to find that perfect mix.
Yeah, and it's so satisfying when you find the perfect combo, isn't it? For example, there's a function which creates an explosive orb which blows up when you hit it, while a cluster bomb type function can augment that, so it splits into 3 explosive orbs. It's perfect for crowd control, all those big boss fights.
Or you can flip that around so you get a long-range cluster bomb attack while the explosive function augments it, increasing its area of effect. And when you think about how each function can have up to 2 others augmenting it, I mean, the possible combinations goes into the thousands.
And I liked how the game really pushes you out of your comfort zone. Instead of dying when you run out of health, the game disables your favorite function.
Yeah, it did make fights feel more desperate knowing that at any moment I could lose my go-to function. But I did find the upside to this was that I'd often be forced to discover new combos in the process.
Yeah, there's some pretty tough choices to make as you level as well.
We're getting there.
You'll be forced to choose between different functions, or whether to unlock extra augment slots, or upgrade your maximum memory to let you access more functions at once. And there are also various modifiers to choose from, which ramp up the difficulty, but reward you with increased XP.
Yeah, I remember there was a similar feature in their other game, Bastion, and it's great if you're finding it too easy, and it adds just a bit of variety to a second playthrough. Although there is already a good New Game Plus mode, which lets you keep all of your upgrades and randomizes a lot of the enemy encounters. So there's plenty to warrant a second run.
Yeah, there's lots of similarities between this and Bastion. I wouldn't say it's just a reskin though, but they do have a lot in common.
Yeah, I mean, it is very much its own game, but that Bastion DNA is hard to miss, which isn't a bad thing in my opinion because I loved Bastion.
Me too.
The art in Transistor is just as stunning, if not more so. In fact, I think you could take a screenshot from just about any point in the game, frame it, hang it in a gallery, and it wouldn't look out of place. So pretty.
Oh, it's so pretty.
And I can already see the cosplayers getting their costumes and giant sword props ready for the next big convention.
Yes, I'm certainly going to do that. I love the way she's dragging around this giant sword the whole time. It's just so cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. And the music badge.
So pretty.
So pretty. I also love the hum button that brings a spotlight down onto Red while she just hums along to whatever song is playing. It's completely unnecessary, but totally awesome.
Yes, games need more unnecessary but awesome buttons, don't they?
Yes, and this one actually has two, because there's another button that does this. Yeah, it looks great, but once again, I'm pretty sure it's totally pointless.
I like that they've gone for this narration style again, similar to Bastion, but this time the narration comes from the transistor itself.
Know what I hate worse than stairs? Nothing.
He didn't feel quite as responsive to your shenanigans as the Bastion narrator,
Hi.
since he's more of a character in the world rather than an all-knowing, disembodied being.
I see.
It's a great feature though, and it works well to tell a story, and he's always got a bit of feedback for you.
Come on then, tough guy. Get away from him.
I prefer it, honestly. It felt like less of a gimmick. Plus, I love the relationship between Red and the Transistor. I mean, they have a strong bond, and it's interesting watching that play out.
That's my star. Could always handle yourself.
Much like Bastion's Bastion, you have a little beachside sanctuary that you can access through various back doors that you come across. There's nothing to build on or improve in it, but it does give you access to various combat challenges, which really test out your mastery of all the game's mechanics.
Anything good?
Yeah, it also gives you access to more useless but awesome stuff. Like a beach ball you can kick around with a pet process, or you can just lay back in a hammock and stare at the stars while Transistor muses about the world.
That's Sybil. Always palling up to you and everybody. Showed her true colors back there.
So what did you think overall, Hex?
I loved it. I mean, I think this is worth playing for the music and the art alone, but add to that rock-solid gameplay and story, and what's not to love? I'm giving it 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I love this too. I would have liked a bit more explanation in the story. Some may like that you have to dig deep and really work all that out, but I just wanted a little bit more. Still, this is fantastic. 8.5 out of 10 from me.
And now here's Goose with the news.
Thanks, guys. Games journalist turned writer Gary Whitta will pen the script for an upcoming standalone Star Wars film due in 2016. Whitta was a prolific games writer in the 90s, working as editor-in-chief of the UK and US versions of PC Gamer magazine. More recently, he's written for video games as the narrative director on Telltale's The Walking Dead series. And in more Star Wars-related news, Disney Interactive's free-to-play space combat game, Star Wars Attack Squadrons, has been cancelled. After months of beta testing, the developers announced on social media that they had decided to cease development so that they could focus on other Star Wars experiences. And that's all the news for this week.
The dangerous, thrilling world of illegal motorbike street racing. It was captured hilariously on the Mega Drive with the Road Rash series. I arrived, tires screeching into this franchise with Road Rash 3. Released in 1995, this game allowed you to take your love of street racing global, tearing across the 16-bit landscapes of countries like Japan, Kenya, and Brazil. There was even an Australian track. Your aim was simple. Choose a bike, outrace the slow-riding cops, avoid obstacles, and beat your opponents senseless with whatever weapons you could find. You had to try and steal weapons from other races, and these could be anything from chains, crowbars, nunchucks, although my personal favourite was the cattle prod. I just love the way the game painted this badass picture of the biker world, and all the other races had these absurd names like Biff and Belladonna. Of course, when I think back on this era of gaming, the music and the sound effects really make it for me. The soundtrack to Road Rash 3 was amazing. Awesome 80s metal and electro, and often themed to the country you were racing in. When I think back on this game, I remember my friends and I grabbing the controller from each other mid-race when one of us wiped out, hoping that we could outdo each other and salvage the victory. It was the first time I really remember that feeling of video game competitiveness, the frustration and the shame of losing and the desire to do better. But thankfully, regardless of whether you won or lost, you could always look forward to end screens like this.
Ladders. A series of rungs connected to an upright surface. Traditionally used to reach new heights or depths, can be made from wood, rope, or alloys. We've been awkwardly shimming our way to dizzying heights and dreadful depths on rigid rungs for a long time now. You could be forgiven for dismissing ladders as merely mundane and functional items, but to developers, they are the basis for some exciting mechanics. When Jumpman's leaps couldn't cut it, it was ladders that helped him reach the damsel. And when it comes to snakes and ladders, things can get laboriously lofty. But ladders are more than just vehicles for verticality.
Here goes.
By their nature, ladders give us access to previously unreachable areas, and as a result, they're often used as beacons for progression.
Solid as a rock.
From escaping sewers to crossing precipices, the ladder regularly sees us through to our next destination. While they'll take us where we need to go, ladders can also leave us vulnerable. Limited mobility while climbing not only opens us up to attacks,
Hey, we're on a ladder here, jerks!
but also a good scare or two. Your average climbers are at the mercy of all kinds of peril as they begin a slow climb, unarmed with nowhere to run and a long way to fall. But we're not always left helplessly clutching rungs. Some games relieve us of the need to hold on. They provide a vantage point for strategic insertions or give us freedom to rain down hell from above. But of course, what goes up must come down, and with ladders that's not always easy. Standing precariously at the summit, there's always a small part of us that predicts the worst. However, once we do connect, it's often a smooth slide to the surface. Sometimes a ladder's use takes us by surprise. Sometimes we build our own. But you can rest assured that when in doubt, chances are there's a ladder about.
You mess with Shepard, and you mess with his friend. Unless we happen to be climbing a ladder.
As we move toward a future where more and more of our personal identities exist online, Ubisoft brings us an open-world experience where everything digital can be manipulated. This is Watch Dogs.
Let's see how safe you feel when I trace your call.
Sounds like somebody making up a story to get a book deal to me.
No, but what do you have with you?
I don't.
There you are.
Smile, bone tones, the heartbeat. Not only in my chest, but the heart in the street. So when they feel this, they feel me. But I can feel nothing outside the free. Telling me you gotta walk away from this, man.
Some things you can't walk away from.
Please!
Bajo, hacking was cool in the 90s when people wore lycra and touted floppy disks as weapons. Well, I thought so anyway.
Yes, maybe. It was a little cheesy.
True. Ubisoft's contemporary hacker future manages to be quite sophisticated and believable though, doesn't it?
Yeah, they've done a great job of creating a living, breathing vision of Chicago that is embedded in a Big Brother level of surveillance and control.
You got a nasty security system.
You take the role of Aiden Pierce, a heap-sleet hacker for hire. But after pissing off the wrong people, his niece is killed in a hit targeting him. So he's now a hacker on a path for justice. Revenge hacks.
Yes, it's not really enough to justify his actions, though, is it?
No, and it doesn't really get you excited about this mysterious world of hackers, which is what I was after. It just felt a bit thin.
Yeah, to me it came across more like he was a murderer and a thief, as he boldly shoots and steals his way across Chicago in an effort to make peace with his own guilt.
I killed her.
No, you didn't.
Nevertheless, the basic idea of how he bends this city to his will works well, I think, and the mechanics are as flashy and unique as the devs set out to achieve.
Yes, it's very slick, very smooth.
Out now.
The city itself is GTA inspired with similar open world driving action and all the usual objectives. But Aiden is able to hack into the city's central operating system, or CTOS, and this is core to how you navigate the environment and complete missions.
Most of Aiden's missions involve stealthily infiltrating CTOS facilities to get security codes and information. I found myself going through the motions a little bit. I often wondered what I was doing and why. Still, there's a great stealth approach to a lot of the action.
Huh? That's weird.
Some of the stealth side missions are really tough. While you can generally blast your way through the main missions if you're impatient like me and regularly break stealth, many of the side missions make it pretty impossible for you to be clumsy about anything. You need to find clever ways to use distractions and remotely hack machinery.
How's that happening? Fucking turned yourself on, didn't you?
Yeah, I liked this a lot. Some of these ideas feel really fresh, which is just what this genre needs. I also like that you can create gadgets to attract attention.
Alright, take the bait.
And there's some nice environmental stuff to take advantage of as well. Though a lot of the goons seem to have hackable explosives, which seems a little unfair to them.
Okay, don't panic. There's gotta be a disarm sequence.
Sorry, buddy.
I loved hacking into the security cameras. That was probably my favorite feature of the game.
Yeah, that's so foul.
Hacking your way from one camera to the next to find the security panel you need, that was really cool and such a clever way to really plan out your strategy.
At first I thought that camera-to-camera line of sight hacking thing was just completely lame, but after a while I realized no, it's just a way they've made hacking fun for a video game. It works. And sometimes you'd even hack into the camera on someone's phone. There's a nice puzzle aspect they've applied to this as well, particularly in the way you gain access to those comm towers that, once hacked, will open up new areas of the map.
What did you think of the combat? I thought the guns felt great. I tricked myself out pretty early.
Yeah, they do feel nice, don't they? And there's a good variety. What I like most about the combat was the fluid cover system.
I know you're over there.
I love just hitting a button to slide from one point of cover to the next, even when it was really far away. That just worked beautifully when all the hacking distractions are happening at the same time, and I think that's where the game is at its best.
Enemy AI was pretty good too, I thought, although not so great at picking up on danger cues. Like if you explode a guy and his body is just lying there, they're like, no, it's cool guys, I think we're gonna be okay.
Don't worry about him.
Looks like nothing to worry about.
Like your friend is dead on the floor, clearly things are not okay.
At least call an ambulance. I will say that the civilian AI is some of the best we've seen in an open world game. They all have really great reactions that stay consistent. If you pull out a gun, they'll freak out.
Don't hurt me!
Ay, Dios mío!
I can call someone.
Man, just take my money
Maybe I
and
should
go.
call someone.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I love that they all have their own personalities and lives and stories. And you discover these as you're constantly roaming the streets, hacking their phones, intercepting calls and text conversations.
Come on. I thought all guys did.
You can even steal music from them. And their bank account info, which is how you make a lot of your money. It's just nice to have a world that actually feels inhabited.
Yeah, it definitely adds a layer of humanity to it.
We recently spoke to lead story designer Kevin Short about how the team created such varied backstories for these civilians.
We knew that we needed a living city that felt alive. For us, then, that meant we then had to go to Chicago. And we knew we wanted to record in Chicago because they have a very distinct accent.
You got a problem?
So annoying.
And as you can imagine, it's a lot of reactions for every single NPC. I think we spent a total of about 6 weeks in Chicago, and that was with 2 studios running simultaneously every day. And we had so many actors out of Chicago just recording all those voices. And every single one is unique to some extent. You will never see exactly the same profiler on any NPC anywhere in the game. In a subtle way, it gets players making micro choices constantly. So we would watch and see players wanting to hack somebody's bank account. And so I'd watch them, and they're looking at the profiles They're like, oh, unemployed. I'm not gonna hack him. Ooh, a mother of 4 kids. I'm not gonna hack her. And they would wait until they found someone who they felt was the right person to hack. And I love that because it's not us telling them. It's not the game saying, here's the type of person you should be looking for. It's entirely the players making their own choices on that. In combat situations, you no longer think about the class of enemy you're fighting. You think about the fact that the person you're trying to take down is a newlywed. Maybe you don't kill him now, maybe you just knock him out or something. In most games, often in open world games, you can look at NPCs as just, they soon become just kind of obstacles, and you kind of stop noticing them. And the profiler constantly reminds you to think about them as people.
The other way you put your elite hacks to good use is while driving. As you level up, you can apply skill points to various perk trees, but the hacking tree is your most valuable and will assist you most with your escapes.
Yeah, I had great fun with all that. If you fail to evade security scans when the cops are alerted, they will be all over you.
Please, don't move!
You can hack traffic lights to create jams or create openings, all to aid your escape.
Give it up! Pull over!
Police are incredibly difficult to shake unless you use your hacking abilities to twist the city streets to your advantage. So it's clear the devs really wanted to encourage you to hack at every opportunity.
Yeah, at first I thought this was a bit punishing, but then I realized if you break line of sight, you can just hide in your car and they'll lose you.
The best evade is when you activate a bridge to open as you drive across it, foiling your pursuers.
Yeah, there's some great action sequences that come out of those high-speed chases, aren't there?
Ram his car, come on!
Well, speak for yourself. It's no secret that I'm a pretty crap driver in these kinds of games, and I reserve the right to be because that's half the fantasy and the fun. Embrace the chaos.
Well, like embrace the failure.
The cars are great though, although no smart cars, which made me sad. The bikes are my favorite, they handle so well.
That said, I wasn't too impressed with the handling of the cars. I just felt the collisions were a bit weak and I didn't really enjoy the driving. It all felt a bit tedious.
Well, I disagree. I think the collisions need to be forgiving in a game like this. Just like you forgive the fact that street lamps are apparently made of cardboard, otherwise it breaks your flow. You can also make some extra cash by stopping crimes in the area.
You've been talking to people you ain't supposed to be talking to, dude.
You do this by profiling likely targets and then catching them in the act and subduing them before they get away. I was a bit confused by these. I mean, who is Aiden? Is he a thug, a hacker, or a hero?
Yeah, all of the above, I guess. It did feel a bit weird that one minute he's hacking and stealing money from civilians, and then the next he's fighting crime. I guess it was an attempt to make the character seem more like a vigilante and not just a cold-blooded killer.
Yeah, his motivations are just a little bit unclear in general. Still, I enjoyed those missions, and I always go for those over boring race missions. Though there are some larger scale side quests which require some lengthy strategy and planning.
Dotted around the map are also augmented reality games, and these are like little shooters that you can play. Also, there are these guys that sell digital trips.
Which are definitely not drugs.
No.
These aren't drugs. It's all audio sensations, man.
But they do transport you into a virtual reality game.
Never resist the challenge.
These were a fantastic idea, but to me they felt a bit tacked on.
Well, I actually thought they were really interesting. If anything, they help flesh out this alternate reality. I just love those future tech world details. But that doesn't necessarily mean I want to go and play them. Game within a game instances are generally pretty unappealing, aren't they?
There are a bunch of multiplayer modes, and you'll probably want to have a go at them because they unlock stuff for the single player. We weren't able to test them all out fully at the time of reviews, so these are just first impressions. The weirdest mode is hacking contracts. This is where you invade someone else's world, initiate a wireless hack, and then try to remain hidden until the hack is complete.
Well, you know, this is that ghost of Assassin's Creed creeping back in again, because this is actually very reminiscent of the multiplayer in that series.
Yeah, it's weird though, but it is funny watching them run around trying to find you. Never gonna catch me.
There are some other modes too, but the best is definitely the decryption contracts. In this mode, one player has a file and the rest have to hack it off them wirelessly by proximity.
This is the only multiplayer mode that I see myself coming back to, Hex. It's just frantic as you're trying to get the file and suddenly your enemies are your friends, and then you get the file and then they're your enemies again and you're the one being hunted. It's great fun. The rounds are maybe a little bit long, and I also found it a bit tricky to navigate through certain parts of this world. I'd get stuck where it gets cluttered.
Yeah, I think that's part of the stress of it though, Bajo, just trying to use the environment and whatever you can hack around you to keep away from other players. And I like that these can occur as random encounters as you're making your way through the single player. Because while I wouldn't necessarily actively sit down to an online multiplayer session of this, when the opportunity presents itself, I'm like, yeah, why not?
Initially, I was a bit underwhelmed with Watch Dogs, Hex. Maybe it's a case of the best is yet to come, because we haven't quite finished it yet.
This is powerful. Just don't be stupid.
I imagine the story will get more into the people behind the CTOS organization and who is actually in control of everything. But the setup just didn't give me enough to get excited about the game.
Yeah, it needs a punchier lead-in to really pique your interest. The focus is definitely on teaching you the game's hacking mechanics, which, as cool as they are, simply put a newish spin on a genre that's very much sticking to the format. Is it greedy of me to say I want more?
No, I don't think so. I think the confusing characterization of Aiden, along with a fairly weak story, contributes to that.
I was enjoying this tech-focused future, but I didn't really connect with Aiden or understand who he was or where he came from.
Where?
But again, maybe that gets explained later on. Plus, he seriously suffers from action hero Batman voice.
Just tell me where they are.
Just tell me where they are.
They should have made that tattooed French chick the main protagonist. She was way cooler.
I hope I don't frighten you.
What, do you have a reason to frighten me?
To be honest, Hex, I was expecting a lot from this game. It had a lot of hype leading up to it, and it didn't quite live up to that. But still, the more I played it, the more I enjoyed it, because when the action works, it really works. And so I think it's worth 8 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Yeah, it's a lot of things that Watch Dogs brings to the open world driving genre that were really exciting to learn. And I like the way they're looking at how we use technology now and how this might be a prediction of the not too distant future. But it still all feels quite familiar to me, and it just fell a little flat. So I'm giving it 7.5 out of 10. So did you name the game for this week? It was Road Rash Jailbreak from 1999. Your buddy Spaz has been imprisoned, and as the name of the game suggests, it's your mission to break him out of the clink. And how do you achieve this? By joining a motorcycle gang and working your way up through the ranks, of course. And it's our Name the Game because it's the last in the Road Rash series, a game franchise very close to my heart.
Next week on the show, we investigate the brutal murder of ourselves in Murdered Sole Suspect.
Spoilers.
I saw my share of death while I was alive. But this case and this killer are unlike any I've ever known.
And the fate of a nation is in our hands with Tropico 5.
And over on Spawn Point, our show for younger gamers on ABC3 this weekend, we live the lives of Tomodachi, which means friends in Japanese. And it gets weird.
I'm not sure my new cartwheel everywhere exercise regime is working.
I'm interested in your definition of working.
So until next week, Bajo out.
Hex out. And now we leave you with some pump and party action from Watch Dogs.
Get out of here.